Chapter 6. Rothschilds' 25-point plan for world domination. It will be just as easy for nations to get along in a republic of the world as it is for us to get along in a republic of the United States. This is a quote by President Harry Truman, 1945. According to the True Democracy Party in January 2012, the Rothschilds have a plan for world domination. In 1770, Mayer Amschel Rothschild married Guta Schnapper. That same year he retained Jewish-born Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit-trained professor of canon law, to revise and modernize Illuminism, the worship of Satan, with the objective of world domination and the imposition of the Luciferian ideology upon what would remain of the human race after a final orchestrated social cataclysm. In 1773, Mayer summoned 12 wealthy men to Frankfurt, Germany, and asked them to pool their resources, and then presented the 25-point plan that would enable them to gain control of the wealth, natural resources and manpower of the whole world. They are: use violence and terrorism rather than academic discussions, preach liberalism to usurp political power, initiate class warfare, politicians must be cunning and deceptive, any moral code leaves a politician vulnerable, dismantle existing forces or order and regulation, reconstruct all existing institutions, remain invisible until the very moment when it has gained such strength that no cunning or force can undermine it, use mob psychology to control the masses. Without absolute despotism one cannot rule efficiently. Advocate the use of alcoholic liquors, drugs, moral corruption and all forms of vice, used systematically by agitators to corrupt the youth. Seize properties by any means to secure submission and sovereignty. Foment wars and control the peace conferences so that neither of the combatants gains territory, placing them further in debt and therefore into our power. Choose candidates for public office who will be servile and obedient to our commands, so they may be readily used as pawns in our game. Use the press for propaganda to control all outlets of public information, whilst remaining in the shadows, clear of blame. Make the masses believe they have been the prey of criminals, then restore order to appear as the saviors. Create financial panics. Use hunger to control to subjugate the masses. Infiltrate Freemasonry to take advantage of the Grand Orient Lodges to cloak the true nature of their work in philanthropy. Spread their atheistic materialistic ideology amongst the Gentiles. When the hour strikes for our sovereign Lord of the entire world to be crowned, their influence will banish everything that might stand in his way. Use systematic deception, high-sounding phrases and popular slogans. The opposite of what has been promised can always be done afterwards, and that is of no consequence. A reign of terror is the most economical way to bring about a speedy subjection. Masquerade as political, financial and economic advisers to carry out our mandates with diplomacy and without fear of exposing the secret power behind national and international affairs. Ultimate world government is the goal. It will be necessary to establish huge monopolies, so even the largest fortunes of the Gentiles will depend on us to such an extent that they will go to the bottom together with the credit of their governments on the day after the great political smash. Use economic warfare. Rob the Gentiles of their landed properties and industries with a combination of high taxes and unfair competition. Make the Goyim, Gentiles, destroy each other so there will be only the proletariat left in the world, with a few millionaires devoted to our cause and sufficient police and soldiers to protect our interests. Call it the New Order. Appoint a dictator, fool, bemuse and corrupt the younger members of society by teaching them theories and principles we know to be false. Twist national and international laws into a contradiction which first masks the law and afterwards hides it altogether. Substitute arbitration for law. Further world progress is now possible only through the search for a consensus of all mankind, in a movement towards a new world order. This is a quote from President Mikhail Gorbachev of Russia. According to conspiracygov.com, during the 20th century, statesmen such as Woodrow Wilson and Winston Churchill used the term New World Order to refer to a new period of history, due to a change in world political power and thought after the World Wars. H. G. Wells in the 1940s adopted and redefined the term New World Order as a synonym for the establishment of a fully fledged social democratic world government. In the 1960s, American writer Mary M. Davison traced the alleged New World Order conspiracy to the creation of the U.S. Federal Reserve System in 1913 by international bankers who she claimed later formed the Council on Foreign Relations in 1921 as the shadow government. In his 1974 book Rockefeller, Campaigning for the New World Order, and his 1987 book Say No to the New World Order, American journalist Gary Allen articulated the anti-globalist theme of much current right-wing conspiracism in the U.S. Former President George H. W. Bush in the 11th of September 1990 speech described his ideals for post-Cold War global governance by saying, "Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided, a world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict and Cold War. Now, we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong, a world where the United Nations, free from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders, a world in which freedom and respect for human rights find a home among all nations." After the millennium, and specifically during the global financial crisis of 2008 to 2009, politicians such as Gordon Brown, Henry Kissinger and Barack Obama used the New World Order term in their advocacy for a Keynesian reform of the global financial system. According to conspiracygov.com, the British occultist Alice Bailey prophesied in 1940 that the Allies would be victorious in World War II over the Axis powers and that the Allies would establish a political and religious new world order. She saw a federal world government and argued that it would be synergist because it was guided by spiritually ascended masters that were intent on preparing humanity for the mystical second coming of Christ in the dawn of the age of Aquarius. She said that a group called the Great White Brotherhood works on the inner planes to oversee the transition to the New World Order. Author Jim Marrs argued that some ex-Nazis that survived the war were given safe haven and used by the American government under Operation Paperclip to help advance aerospace design and manufacture in the United States. He cites organizations such as Odessa and ISP in that have worked behind the scenes since the end of World War II to enact some principles of Nazism into culture, government and business. This neo-Nazi conspiracy is said to be animated by an iron dream in which the United States establishes the Fourth Reich, a pan-Aryan New World Order modeled on Hitler's New Order. The widow of William Paulek also seems to agree with this. William used to work on top-secret projects around the world, and after a meeting one day with Jesko von Puttkamer, who came to the United States with Werner von Braun, Bill was convinced that the United States, and probably the whole world, was being controlled by Europeans, but exactly who they were was the question. This drove William and his friends on a quest to find out what was really going on. After that, he frequently quoted his friend Jim Marrs, who often says that the Nazis may have lost the battles, but they won the war. Some people theorize that the global power elite are modern Luciferians pursuing a transhumanist agenda to develop and use human enhancement technology in order to become a human ruling caste which will lead towards a new world-like dystopia and the extinction of the human species. Others speculate that the New World Order is being introduced gradually over many years, citing the U.S. Federal Reserve System in 1913, the IMF in 1944, the UN in 1945, the World Bank in 1945, the WHO in 1948, the EU in 1993 along with the Euro and the World Trade Organization in 1998. Finally, according to conspiracygov.com, some conspiracy theorists of the Christian right believe there is an occult conspiracy started by the first mystagogues of Gnosticism and perpetuated by alleged esoteric successors such as Kabbalists, Cathars, Knights Templar, Rosicrucians, Freemasons and the Illuminati, which seek to subvert the Judeo-Christian foundations of the West and implement the New World Order through a new Age One World religion that prepares the world to embrace the imperial cult of the Antichrist. They speculate that conspirators plotting on behalf of a New World Order are directed by occult agencies, unknown superiors, spiritual hierarchies, demons, fallen angels or Lucifer. The evidence of this has been shown to be the Georgia Guidestones in the U.S. state of Georgia.